Cutting-edge research from the journal Gut, published on July 25th, 2016, reveals that gluten sensitivity is real. There are many people out there who suffer from celiac disease. In fact, numbers estimate that 1% of the population suffers from celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disease against the stomach, specifically tissue transglutaminase 2 antibodies and endomysial antibodies, which show that the immune system is attacking the tissue of the stomach and creating leakiness, malabsorption, and reacting to wheat. Now, there's many people out there who have a wheat or gluten sensitivity, who they know when they consume wheat or foods with wheat in it that they thought were wheat-free or gluten-free, that they react. They may have GI complaints, they may have cognitive complaints, they may have both. They may notice that their stools are watery or changed from normal. And many of these people are denied by the mainstream medical establishment, saying that if they don't have celiac disease or a documented IgE wheat allergy, that there's no such thing as gluten sensitivity or food sensitivities in general, and they don't have a problem. Well, this latest study, titled Intestinal Cell Damage and Systemic Immune Activation in Individuals Reporting Sensitivity to Wheat in Absence of Celiac Disease, throws that hypothesis or theory under the bus. This study proves that gluten sensitivity is real, and they've determined objective markers to measure that, and they found that in the absence of celiac disease, these patients are not just telling lies or feeling something that's all in their heads. There is physiologic support to this. So what they did is they looked at patients with celiac disease and known wheat allergy, and then they looked at patients with documentation of no celiac disease and no wheat allergy, but with reported gluten sensitivity or with GI symptoms after consuming gluten, with cognitive symptoms after consuming gluten. And so they ran tests and looked at immune system function, looking at cells called CD14 cells. They looked at antibodies against bacterial or microbial metabolites called lipopolysaccharide. They ran lipopolysaccharide binding protein levels and saw that those were elevated. And then they also discovered a new marker that correlates with gluten sensitivity called fatty acid binding protein 2. And they found that that fatty acid binding protein 2 is a cytosolic protein that when cells are damaged or break apart, this is released. And so they found that when intestinal barrier cells, when there's damage to the gut lining or to the intestinal barrier, that the fatty acid binding protein 2 levels are increased, and this is showing that there are in fact gastrointestinal issues from gluten sensitivity in the absence of celiac disease and wheat allergy. So this is big news, because now all these people being swept under the rug saying that they were sensitive to gluten but that didn't have documented celiac disease, now we are on the path to being able to objectively document this with labs and then continue to treat them. Now, as a practitioner, I've seen for a while clinically that gluten sensitivity is real. I myself am sensitive to gluten, so I didn't need this study to prove it to myself that it's real, but it's great for the medical establishment overall to say, hey, this is a real thing, and functional medicine practitioners and other practitioners for years have been seeing this and treating this and getting a result. And one of the best treatments for this, as the study showed, is a wheat-restricted diet, or going totally wheat-free and gluten-free. So that includes barley, rye, and the other grains that have gluten in them. So this is a big study. Another important important finding from this study, or reinforcement, is basically showing how the reaction to the fatty acid binding protein, or the gluten sensitivity, doesn't only damage the gut, but the damage of the gut causes the gut to be leaky, as we've heard about in leaky gut, and this increases what's called bacterial translocation, or the movement of bacteria from the gut into the systemic circulation. And when that occurs, that's going to lead to systemic inflammation, and that's how we get extra intestinal symptoms from a gluten sensitivity. So you eat the gluten, the fatty acid binding protein goes up because there's damage to the cells of the intestinal lining. The bacteria in the intestine now enter the bloodstream or translocate from the gut where they were imprisoned before, but now that there's a leaky gut, they can spread to the system. They enter the circulation, and now all bets are off. Now they're causing inflammation systemically. So now you're going to have cognitive symptoms, fatigue, lack of concentration, brain fog, and then the immune system is on alert systemically, and this can lead to autoimmune disease. And the autoimmune disease that develops in you is highly determined by what your specific susceptibility is. So maybe in me, I develop Hashimoto's disease of my thyroid. Maybe in you, you develop lupus or multiple sclerosis or something else. So systemic immune activation and systemic inflammation ultimately snowballs into autoimmunity. So there's a mechanism here where we could infer that long-term gluten sensitivity can lead to autoimmunity via the mechanism of leaky gut, bacterial translocation, systemic immune activation, and systemic inflammation. So a massively important study for functional medicine and for patients out there who have been denied by their mainstream doctors saying that gluten sensitivity isn't real. Well, now you have proof that gluten sensitivity is real, and it reinforces what functional medicine practitioners and natural practitioners for years have noticed clinically in their clients, that gluten sensitivity is in fact real, and when we go on a gluten and wheat restricted diet, these patients recover and improve, and it's a way to prevent systemic inflammation and all the downstream effects of that, potential effects being autoimmunity, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and on and on. So thank you for watching today and listening, and continue to seek out truth and knowledge. I'm Dr. John Bartemus. Have a great day.